take a couple of deep breaths. Just let your body kind of turn off the energy of the day. Go within. And if it's your first time here, the way we start, I'm Mary Bell Nyman from the Psychic Horizon Center. And the way we start is always by grounding. So you can close your eyes if that feels comfortable. And as your body's sitting there, just imagine a grounding cord, a way of anchoring from the center, from the very base of your spine to the very center of the earth. And just allow those 2 points to be connected. You can think of sitting on a giant redwood tree, a hollow pipe, a band of energy. Just breathing. And as those 2 points are connected, the base of your spine and the very center of the earth, let that grounding expand till it's as big around as your hips. There you go. And then take about 3 or 4 deep breaths. Kind of signals to the body you're turning off the world. Going inward. Just working on you. And just relax into that grounding. And the minute you ground, anything that's not yours is automatically released. And it gives you more space as a spirit to come inside yourself, to really be present. Just relaxing. And you can take a minute and think of 3 things from the day that you can separate from, just to be in right here in this moment. So it could be a phone call, could be someone you saw, could be when the mail came, you made dinner. Just separate a little bit from your day so you can just be right in the moment. And then calling back all your energy from the week. Just think of having a magnet and allowing it to gather up all the energy you expended this week, whether it was at work or driving, laundry, fixing dinner. And it'll come back in neutral. Won't be dirty sock energy. You're safe. So just calling all that energy back so you can reuse it. You can gather it up in a huge ball, gold ball above your head. And maybe before you pop that ball and bring it into your body, think of 3 things you'd like to have for yourself. And put that awareness up in that gold sun, that gold ball of energy. With those 3 things you'd like to give to yourself, and then pop it. And let that energy flow down and fill up your whole body inside. And then expand out to the outside of your aura. So in this group, we use energy tools because it's the energy that we deal with all the time that confounds us. So we'll talk about energy tools. And if you don't know about them, you'll be learning. It won't matter. So one of the first ones I'm going to start with is I had a friend who almost lost her parents in an accident. And this was several months ago. So they came very close to dying, but they didn't. And they're on the road to recovery, doing really well. But when she wrote me, she said, hey, every time I go, I'm the main person who takes care of the paperwork. I'm the person who's taking care of all the insurance stuff for my family. But every time I do it, I get triggered again. And by triggering, she means she goes into survival and fear, and that feeling of, oh my God, they should have, they could have died, and what would I have done, and all those kinds of memories. And so she was asking, how do you get out of a survival situation like that? And these things are real. We get triggered by things all the time that put us in survival. And so one of the things I pointed out to her was, one, you need to congratulate yourself. You got your parents through, they're doing great. And be really gentle on yourself, because that was a very traumatic episode or incident. It isn't something you just forget overnight. And to recognize that feeling of getting triggered or having it come up again is post-traumatic stress syndrome, PTSD, and that she really can get some help on that. There's great therapists out there that will do work on PTSD. And this is really important because we have such great awareness now in how to help someone through an event like that. So, and one of the interesting things about spirit is it kind of recreates the same vibration again and again in different ways so that you can release the original survival and once it's gone, it's gone. But it will go back and trigger the last episode so that you're always chipping away at that pain. And once the pain is gone, you never create that kind of a same survival incident again. So this car accident could have triggered something much earlier in her, or it could be the first trigger. But either way, when you're working on something like that, finding ways of being present for yourself, giving to yourself. The body is going to be triggered, so it has to have a way that it can get back to what was base or what was normal. And for her, it's like really being gentle with herself and recognizing that even though she didn't lose her parents, that still can be traumatic to the body. And the third way I suggested for her was to get a healing. We have great healers. A lot of our graduates are doing healing work. We have several healing clinics. But to get some help when you get triggered in survival. And these are great things that anybody can do. So right now, there's a lot of curveballs out there in the planet. Probably haven't noticed any. The whole election coming up, all the different things that trigger us. Our country right now is more polarized than it ever has been. I personally can't say I've ever seen it this polarized. And it's like, how do you turn it around and start to come back and work together with each other instead of one side against the other? It's got to be a win-win. where all of us can sit down and work through things. And so these are some of the things that also can get triggered when you're looking at survival, the basic needs in life and how we move through them in a positive way. And this grounding, this ability to center yourself and let go of what isn't yours is a real big first step in finding your center again, finding that balance, being able to have that place where you feel sane again. Because otherwise the body goes into a level of fear from the middle of the solar plexus all the way down into the emotions. And so all the way down, the body starts to go through a level of trauma and into that body. So pretty exciting when you can start to use energy tools that help you move through a traumatic situation and find a level of peace and calm for that body. Another one is our health issues. And as we're as we're aging in our population, we're going to have some health issues, whether it's having arthritis in a knee or someone being diagnosed with cancer or macular degeneration. It's like taking that kind of a diagnosis, whatever it is, and grounding the energy out of it. Being able to release everybody else's concept of what that is so that you can start to, one, get information about it. And one of the ways to do that is just taking that grounding cord that we talked about earlier and putting it around those words and draining the energy out. My stepmother has macular degeneration, and a good friend of mine just got diagnosed with it. And eventually it blacks out the middle of the eye. So you can just see around the periphery, but you can't see right on, it's straight on. You're blind, but around the periphery you can see light. And it depends on what stage it is and for each person. But you can take that kind of diagnosis and instead of panicking, it's like, get some great information, read up on it, ground out everybody else's worry or fear, and start to make friends with it, with your body. Okay, we have this, not going away. How do I work with it? And again, looking at the different things you can do to support your own health, eating right, and that's different for each of us. I really don't believe there's one way to eat. You got to really talk to your body and see what resonates with yourself. So finding, if you get into a survival situation around health issues, really educating yourself and starting to listen to your own body, making friends, whatever your diagnosis is. It's like, okay, it may feel like the end of the world, but for right now, you're just in stage 1, dance with it. And giving yourself that place that you can work through some of these different challenges. Another one might be losing your job. And that can be a big one. That can really trigger the loss of income, the fear of that next step. And sometimes we don't really know what that next step is. We don't know what's around the corner, and that is a little frightening. But again, at the same time, here's this unique opportunity to find something that's even better for you than what you were just in. And really looking at what are the things that bring you the most joy, the most happiness. What areas are you interested in? So if you're going to do marketing, you might as well do marketing for a company that would be fun for you to learn about or that has something that interests you versus just a marketing job. So really looking around to find that match, putting the puzzle pieces together can help you get out of that fear of taking a next step. I think when you can make a game plan, kind of have a list and set your priorities, Maybe you just start with one thing that you're going to change or that you want to work on, and let yourself have a month to work through it, and then try another one, so that you can start with a list and go through them, prioritizing the things that really work for you. Deep breathing, meditating to me has always worked, because you get quiet inside and then you can find an answer. And to me, if I have a real challenge, I like to sit on one side of a table and put the challenge on the other side and kind of look at the energy of it. I like to close my eyes and meditate, so I'm reading it clairvoyantly and looking at it from all perspectives, as if you walked around it on the table, figuring out what is the truth for you. What are the things that resonate? And how do you want to embrace that challenge? We all get challenged. And I think a lot of it's in your attitude of how you can move toward acceptance. And even if you come up with an idea that says, hey, it's totally different than what I want, that's great. It's like, all right, how am I going to get there? And every time you have that certainty or that one focus, that direction, I'm doing it this way, and you go towards it, it's harder to get taken off your path when you're of one focus. If you're scattered and you're, well, I could do this or this or this, if you don't have that clear decision, then it is easier to get pulled off your path, and that does increase the survival. So just for everybody right now, we're going to play kind of a game, an energy game. I'm going to have you close your eyes and just kind of be in that space of awareness. And I'd like you to look at something you were in survival about, but aren't now. It could be something earlier from this year. It could be last year, the year before. What's something that was a real challenge for you? Maybe it felt like you'd never get through it. And then just start to get a little curious and look at, what did you learn? You've already made it through this challenge. What did you learn from it? What's something you wouldn't know now had you not gone through it? And how did you resolve it? What kind of resolution did you come to? And then how much peace do you have with it now? Did you come to peace with it? And if there isn't a lot of peace with it now, look and see what gets in the way. Anything keeping it from having a peaceful ending. It's not always happy. But can you be at peace with it? I would say when my father died, there were parts of him I really liked and parts I had a really hard time with. And I came to terms with both of those sides. It didn't change anything, but it allowed me to feel comfortable. Okay, this is where it was. This is as far as we could take it on this journey. And so how much peace can you find with that issue? And if there isn't total peace, can you make room for not knowing what that total resolution is? Because whatever you hold on to, you tend to manifest. So if you're stuck in anger with something, you tend to start to manifest some of that anger in other places. So when you get to a place of forgiveness, it's really much more for you, we all know that, than it is for the other person. It's so that you can have that inner peace. And to me, this is the easiest way to deal with survival issues, is to take a deep breath and just make peace with it. And things that you've worked on, where maybe you've worked on an old relationship or whatever your challenge was, you've worked it to the point you just can't think of anything else to do. Then letting it go. It's like, okay, universe, I'm giving it to you. I've done everything I can. And finding that place where you can just be present with it. And life is interesting. There's always going to be some level of challenge, and there's always going to be days that have great levels of pleasure. And, it's just a marvelous day. You're at the high of highs, and then, 2 weeks later, you're at the low of lows. And life is made up of both sides. Nobody stays in one place their whole life. So we really never know what's going to happen. It's always a combination. And thinking that we can find this lasting thread that's going to last forever, that it's, not going to be a challenge in there, it's kind of silly. Somebody had a little saying on, even those who reach enlightenment still have to do laundry. So true. So it doesn't matter where you go in life, there's still some of the mundane things you get challenged with. And the quicker you make friends with that, the easier you get through it. So thinking that things are going to always be in a place of lasting pleasure and that we're going to avoid pain is kind of a hopeless cycle. And that would make you suffer more than just recognizing there's a cycle to life, an up and a down. And when you are in that down cycle, it's like, okay, isn't this great? What can I learn from it? It gives us compassion for ourselves and those around us. So take a deep breath. And just for a minute, start to bring some of that compassion to yourself. For any tough situation you've gone through, whether it was a relationship challenge, a work challenge, a health challenge. Trust me, we all get challenged. But bring some gentleness to it. Bring a level of peace to that place you're trying to fix in you. And take a deep breath and just be with it. Maybe let yourself reframe it a little bit. Nice deep breath. And again, you can bring in one of those gold suns, twice as big as your body. full of brand new life force. Put it up above your head and pop it, let it flow in, filling you up with brand new life force. Another way to help you when you get in survival is bring in some fresh energy. It lets you start to think it through in a different way. As you can imagine, as the center director, I get a up-close front look at all the problems that happen. And another one that we were confronted with this week, or actually 2 weeks ago, a good friend fell off his deck and he broke his back in a couple of places, just totally fractured his whole pelvis. And the miracle is there was no spinal damage, no nerve damage, and no brain damage. And this guy's in a tremendous amount of pain. Everything is screwed together and he's in one of those halos around his neck. And he goes, I'm in so much pain that, just breathing is really a challenge. And I'm sure it is. And so how do you get through something like that? If you've ever had any spine pain, it is challenging. I lived with it for many years. So I was sharing some of my tips with him where you can go. Pain is just tremendous because it tells you exactly where in the body there's a trigger. So if you have this pain in your hand, if you go to that exact point, there's a picture or a concept there that's holding the pain. So it's like going in and getting curious. What is this trying to teach me about? What am I learning by having a pain in my knee or in my hand? And going in directly into that spot. And on a cellular level, if you could imagine taking a little tiny cell and blowing it up, and then putting the energy of softness between all the little molecules so that you're holding it very gently. You can put that feeling or that vibration of love, tenderness for this part of you. Just like if you cut your finger, you usually baby it until it's healed. If you burn it or cut it, you don't cut the finger off. You don't try and make it go away. You work with it and you put your energy in it. You're protective of it. And it's the same. Any place there's pain in the body, it's taking your spiritual awareness to that point, expanding around it, opening it up on a molecular level, and putting that vibration of softness or love around that cell. And it's amazing how the pain will melt away. And this isn't a new concept. Peter Levine, who's just a great therapist, he worked with trauma, and he wrote a great book, Healing into Life and Death. And he worked with terminal cancer patients, and they either healed one way or the other. They healed into death by making their peace, releasing any anger, any trauma they've been holding in their life, so that they died peacefully. The other side of people that had terminal cancer is some of them worked with the trauma or the energy that helped produce that cancer, and they healed back into life. And he didn't have an intent either way, but he did some really great meditations at the end of each of his chapters in the book. And I've read them many times to my friends that were in that position of being terminal. And one was to recognize that, hey, we all suffer. And when you're suffering, connect into like a network of all the people that are suffering on the planet. And it's like, oh, I'm not alone. There are many people that are suffering or that are in survival. And it's like, oh, okay, let me send a hello to all of us, that all pain may be eased. And in doing that, they were able to kind of let go of feeling victimized, that it was somehow something they did wrong, that they were being punished for. And It's ridiculous. So given that ability to start to really heal yourself on a deeper level. And this work with pain is just tremendous, where you can go in and again, on that cellular level, create a vibration of tenderness that eases any level of pain. And I've always been my dad was a doctor, so I'm part scientist and part spiritualist. And so I like to experiment. I like to see what I can do with my own physical body. And you can do this in so many different ways. Like, what drains you? What energies just make you exhausted mentally or physically? Just by getting curious, start to really look at your life and your body and what's going on with it. And then what energizes you? What makes you feel alive? This great friend that died this past week that we did his funeral on Zoom today, I just loved hearing about this guy. He was like 6'4" and a mountain guy and canoeing and, just did all this stuff. He really lived, and a very bright light. He was just a real gentle giant and full of comfort for anybody, any of his friends. And so it's interesting. You can watch different people go through life and how they live it. And there's no right way. It's what feels comfortable to you. What is your MO? But moving any energy that keeps you from being able to find the energy that energizes you, releasing what depletes you so that you have more of that space to give back to you. And these are things that we start to figure out. And you want to do it now before you actually are dying. It gives you so much more space to work them. And so getting curious, finding that space where you can tune in and start to become more aware of what is your life about. Listening to that body, because it always will give you the answer. It's kind of like sometimes you'll buy a food that you intend to cook because maybe it's good for you, and that's the one you throw out a week later. You didn't buy it for you. It rots in the fridge until you throw it away. The things that are really for you, you almost eat right away, or you get to right away, because they're in harmony with you. So it's like really being present when you go grocery shopping. Really listening to what the body wants and not what you want mentally makes a huge difference. So making it an adventure, taking your body shopping so that you can find what really feeds you, what really comforts you as a body versus what society might say is right. And right, out there now, there's at least 20, 30 different kinds of diets or, ways you should be. And I think you have to zero in on what works for you. There is no right way. You can certainly try new things. The second thing is when you're in a position of being in survival, taking a deep breath and releasing that fear. What is it that keeps you frozen? So right now, what's your worst fear in life? Just get curious. What seems larger than life? COVID can be a great example. I've got people that are really afraid of that. And to me, it's like you do the best you can. You wear your mask, you wash your hands, you're smart. Just do the basics. And if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. It's not being paralyzed by something, but doing the thing that feels right to you. That's, be smart and then let it go. You can't say if it's going to happen or not. But releasing the fear that would hold it or magnetize it to you. The second thing for me is always visualizing. What is it I want to happen? What is the outcome I'd rather have? And putting my attention on that so that I can magnetize it and pull it back to me and create what I want. And this is a great one because, you know, lots of times you'll see people go around and they may say, oh, I want a relationship. But if it's a woman, she might be saying, oh, there's no good men out there. There's no good men out there. There's just no good men out there. What has she just created? Meeting all the bums. When there's a lot of great men out there that aren't married that she could date. But that mindset tends to attract whatever it is you put in front of it. So if she just changed that one thought, or if he just changed that one thought, then it would be so much easier to attract a mate. So again, visualizing, being able to really look and see what is it you want to create and draw into you. What do you want to bring back? And there's so many great stories on manifesting. If we had hours, I'd tell them to you one after another, because it's so much fun to look at and play with that concept of manifesting, bringing back what you desire. Another one is believing you can heal yourself and work with yourself and setting yourself up to win. Maybe in your life, you didn't always have that same example. Maybe things were tough for you growing up, and hey, our parents did the best they could, but maybe they weren't able to give you everything you desired. That might have created a longing in there or a belief that you couldn't have things. And so being able to manifest what it is that you want helps take you out of survival. Instead of being afraid and being locked into a pattern, you can look beyond that. Again, I like to visualize it, but some people just know the answer. Some people feel it kinetically. But really looking at what is the best case scenario for you. Getting curious and allowing yourself to play with that energy. Okay, take a deep breath. And think of one thing you'd like to manifest. Let's just play with it for a minute. So whether it's a new job, a new car, a new relationship, whatever it is that's kept you in survival, better health. Let's look at some energy tools that will let you move from A to Z. So first of all, get clear. What's one thing? Just start with one thing you'd like to manifest. And kind of focus in. If you could fine tune it, if you could look through a magnifying glass or one of those mirrors that makes it look larger when you get up close. What are the details? Hone in on what it is exactly that you want to create. Kind of to the point where you can see it happening. Seeing yourself in that picture or in that circumstance. How would you feel? What vibration would you have around you? And then you can create like a huge soap bubble the size of a basketball and put that image inside that bubble. And the soap bubbles, kind of like those little tiny ones that children play where they blow the bubbles and catch one. So it has a very thin wall, but it's a defined space. And put your mock-up or what you want to manifest inside that space. And then take out any energy that says, oh, you can't do that, or that's impossible, or anything that would negate it. And decide when you'd like this to happen. Tonight, tomorrow, next week. So you get a little bit more specific. And then I like to just bless it and fill it with my energy. And then I take the edges of that bubble, even though it's a bubble, and push them in the middle so it makes a boomerang. And then throw that boomerang out to the edge of the universe and let it go. Knowing with no uncertain doubt that it'll come right back to you when it's ready. Just kind of have fun throwing it. It's kind of like breakfast. You go in and you order breakfast and you sit there and wait for it to come back. And if you ordered your eggs over easy and they brought them scrambled, you could send it back to the kitchen, say, good try, no, try again. Or they could come back just the way you ordered them. But you don't go in the kitchen and peer over the chef's stove to see if he's doing it right. You just let it go. You don't even think about it. And it comes back to you. And you go, oh, here's my breakfast. Thanks. And energy is the same way. The least amount of effort you put into it, the quicker it comes back to you. So the trick is really allowing it or letting it go and allowing it to manifest and return. And it can't do that if you're holding on to it. So you have to be a little amused with yourself and let it go so it can come back. And just using some of these energy tools are a great way to start to practice. Start with something easy and keep practicing. One of my favorite lessons for people is to have them write 100 things that they want to manifest. Because after about 50 something, you just start writing something in just to fill up the lines to 100. And some of those last ones are the first ones to come back because you're not trying, you're just putting them down. And things that feel like they're impossible. I can remember putting a trip to Tibet and, well, that'd be interesting. I'd like to go to Tibet. And like a couple of months later, a friend of mine came up and said, hey, are you going to that Tibet trip? And I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought about it. I was thinking of doing this. And she said, she didn't blink. She said, we'll do them both. I'm like, oh, okay. And at the time, I didn't have the money. And she said, I'll lend it to you. You can pay me back. I'm like, great. So signed up, went to Tibet. Great trip. Paid her off and did the other program I was going to do too. And it was like, oh yeah, that was on my list. Cross that one off. So after a while, you start crossing them off. You got 10, 20 empty spaces. You got to keep putting them on. So it's kind of fun to start to play and see how you want to manifest. What do you want to create in your life? What is it you really want? What do you want to accomplish in this lifetime? This is about you. This isn't about anybody else. And create for you. Let your partner create for themselves. And some things you can create together if you want to do a trip. I got my husband's attention a couple years ago and I said, okay, how much money do you want to have left over at the end of the year? Both of us are working. He's like, well, I'd like to have, $5,000. I'm like, sure. All right, let's do it. So we wrote it out, taped it on the wall, and we had it within 3 months. And he's like, wow, well, that was kind of cool. I'm like, great, what do you want to do next? And so we started playing with money just because it's an easy thing to manifest and have come back to you. And we don't do anything illegal. We both work hard, but we have this ability to create what we need. And so it's a fun game to play where you're looking at what is the thing that you're in survival about, and how do you start to turn it around? How do you start to attract what you need or you want in your life? And I think energy tools make it so much easier and a lot more fun. And I mean, there's just so many great stories about manifesting. One time we were flying to Italy, and the plane, we pull into Paris and the plane is deplaning, but our flight's getting ready to take off. They were late. So I'm like, I'm going to ground that next flight to Italy. And sure enough, by the time we got there, everybody had gotten on the plane and gotten seated, but they were lacking a stewardess. So they made them all get off the plane and sit back down in the waiting room. And they were all like, there just wasn't the right amount of stewardesses. So by the time we got there, an extra steward came, so everybody got to board back on. I'm like, held that plane, no problem. That was my plane. It wasn't going anywhere. So they might have been mad at me, but it worked. I got on that plane, got to Italy. So kind of fun. There's just great things you can do. I didn't know they were going to plane other people, but just saying, I knew I wanted to be on that plane. So it's just kind of ironic how some of these things happen and how you become the effect of them. All right, here's your homework. Make yourself a list of 100 things you want to manifest. Don't stop writing till you get 100. And then take your top 10 and write them out on a little piece of paper and put them on your mirror. So every morning you're reading that list. I am going to Italy. I am buying a pair of amethyst earrings. I am getting a new car, whatever it is. And when you pick that top 10, once you start crossing them off, then you got to fill them in again. You got to look at your list of 100 and say, okay, what's next? So let me know how you start manifesting, because it's a fun game to play. I've done two or 300 of these, so it's kind of fun. Make a list of 100, you go through and you've gotten them all. You got to start over. So there's your homework. Have fun manifesting and just play with it. No effort. Just make it fun and see how far you get. All right. Thanks for being here tonight. Have a little fun this week, and I'll see you next Saturday.